Welcome to Module 1.1, What is Blended Learning? In this segment, we will talk about the different components that define blended learning and the difference between technology-rich and blended learning environments. Blended learning, as defined by the Christensen Institute, has a three-part definition. Blended learning can be defined as a formal education program in which the student learns, at least in part through online learning, where the student has some control over time, place, path, and/or pace of learning. Blended learning requires that the different learning modalities are connected to create an integrated learning experience. So for example, if Erin is learning history online for a portion of the lesson, there is data that the teacher can use for the remainder of the lesson activities to determine how she can support Erin in the classroom. Lastly, blended learning takes place, in some part, within a supervised brick-and-mortar school. Now let's talk about what blended learning is not. Blended learning is not the same thing as technology-rich instruction. For example, let's start with a classroom. Let's add some one-to-one devices, maybe some tablets. This is not a blended classroom. When schools cram technology into an otherwise traditional classroom, it becomes technology-rich, which is not necessarily blended. The key distinction between tech-rich and blended classrooms is the shift of content and instruction into the hands of the student, where they have some element of control over time, place, path, and/or pace of learning. Essentially, blended learning is the marriage between brick-and-mortar schooling and online learning. The product of this marriage is blended learning. If we take a closer look at this product of blended learning, we can think of it as a continuum. On the far left, we have a fully face-to-face learning environment. In contrast, on the far right, we have a fully digital learning environment. Between the two, we have blended learning. Some classes may be more heavily face-to-face, and some may be more digital. As an educator, consider the different factors at play: your students, your content, and any barriers or opportunities you might have. What is most important is that the student has a greater degree of control over their learning and that the face-to-face and online learning modalities are intentionally connected.